Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third module of our playlist on industry insights. So, this module will discuss the anatomy of an advisory board, one of my favorite topics. And herein, we will try to discuss everything around the advisory boards, or also commonly known as ad boards. So, their composition, their intent, their purpose, and what we as a part of the medical team can do better in increasing the chances of their success. So, if we try to understand it in a simplified manner, advisory board is nothing but a happening, meeting organized by a pharmaceutical partner for a panel of 8 to 10 experts in the field, wherein the pharma company has put forth a few business related questions to these experts, and through this discussion the company is trying to seek solutions to those trying to seek answers to those business questions. How would this help the pharma company? Obviously, they would know if they are on the right path or not, and if there is any change in the strategy that they need to do. So, once we say that this is a pharma organized event, is it a promotional event? No. The whole sole intent here would be to listen to these experts, to listen to their insights, and listening to those insights, make any changes to the pharma industry's business strategies. So it is certainly not a promotional tool. It is a tool to identify the data gaps and accordingly modify the strategy. So now, why do so many ad boards feel like a missed opportunity? For the very simple reason that these ad boards to to drive a panel of experts towards a focused direction, the pharmaceutical company needs to ensure that the entire discussion is focused around a presentation designed by the pharma company. The presentation must not be promotional. However, it should give the experts a direction in which they can focus their talks around. So it's not that difficult. Just the medical personnel who is looking into the structuring of the ad boards need to stick to a defined framework. If we are if we are following this defined framework of why, what, and how, uh, 80% job would be done, because if that presentation around which the entire discussion is going to take place is well in place, then certainly the chances of having outcomes from that meeting of experts would increase. So what exactly this framework is, if we can visualize it as a pyramid, it will start from the pharmaceutical company's strategic imperative. A strategic imperative would mean the business problem. The business problem, we would discuss it in the next slide. The business problem would depend on the stage the drug is in. Okay. So based on that strategic imperative, based on that why, the presentation has to have another thing, the presentation around which this discussion is happening must not be too verbose. Just 15 to 20 slides are more than enough, good enough. So, yeah, there are, these why, what, and how would be the essential components. And other than this, we need to, therapy wise or disease area wise, we just need to touch upon the crucial points. We need not to talk about pathophysiology. We need not to talk about disease burden and other details which the experts panel already knows of. So, one of the crucial element of your presentation would be the pharma's strategic imperative, the pharma's business problem. The entire presentation will start from here. First and foremost thing, the why. Now coming to the what. So what would mean, what do you want? You as in, you are a part of the pharma team. So what the pharma partner wants to achieve from this ad board, not just, and this what must not be subjective, that the pharma partner wants this ad board to be successful in terms of insights, clinicians' insights. No, you have to sit and define these deliverables which you want to achieve from the discussion, which you want your clinicians, your expert panel of clinicians to answer once the ad board ends. By the end of the ad board meeting, you should be having answers to these questions, to your what. So what becomes the advisory board objectives? So another crucial element of your presentation would be, following the strategic imperative, you will talk about the ad board objectives. Now, the how part, how to reach to this deliverable. How would you make your clinician come with the solution, come up with the deliverable? This would be the how, and how this tool will be in the form of questions. So your presentation would have the discussion questions. By answering these discussion questions, these discussion questions become your tool through which the clinicians would be delivering you the objectives, would be delivering you the answers to the business imperative. So this is the framework you need to stick on, and then the things will start falling in place. So let's start from the business problem. So in a simplified way, if we try to understand this, the business problem. So without any clarity, this shows defining your ability to define the business problem shows how clear you are before you invite the experts into the boardroom. So the way, this analogy says that it is not like you simply call an architect and talk about houses. First, you think about the problem statement. So you know that I have a family, my family is growing, and we need a better, safer home which has schools in close proximity. So this why would define this. If you dive deeply in this simple statement, I have four key points: that family accommodation, then it should be safer, and then it should be in the close proximity of schools. And since my family is growing, it cannot be a one RK studio sort of accommodation. So this why I have to be very clear with. Now this why would depend, see, as I was saying, a drug will the company can have meetings, can ask for experts' opinions at three stages. I have done, as the pharma partner, I have done my I have done my trials with the drug, and now I want to go ahead with my final clinical trial. So before I go ahead, I need to be with my data on animals and lab data, everything, all the entire data is with me. I am pretty sure that this should succeed. What should me going ahead with the clinical trial should succeed. However, I must listen it from these expert clinicians sitting in the boardroom, that are they confident enough, based on my data report, based on my safety efficacy report, are they confident enough that they will prescribe this medicine to their patients or not? Is the reason compelling enough to these because these clinicians would become the investigators. They would be called as clinical investigators. So would they be confident enough to go ahead and use my drug in their clinical trials? So first, at board meeting can happen when I am going with the launch of the drug for clinical trials. Second, already the second stage could be when already the launch of the drug has happened and I need to understand. See, my sales force will bring data. Okay, I will be having a concrete data, but uh, the clinicians are the ones who are sitting in the OPDs with the patients, whom the patients are discussing with about their side effects and adverse events, if any, which happened after taking these drugs. So to understand the real market adoption, to understand the challenges, the barriers which physicians are actually facing in prescribing my drug. So during the launch, during the clinical trial happening, if I need to understand the market better, I will call for an ad board meeting. Third could be when my brand is doing quite well and I want to know what I mean and I want to know um, what minor or what need, what limitation was left with this brand, which my clinician is telling me. So that is the gap area which they can identify, which they are actually facing, and they can make me aware of. And certainly, this can become the basis of my future research. So based on the stage the drug is in, I will go ahead with the ad board meeting. My why of my ad board presentation would be there. So now coming to the what exactly I need my expert panelists discuss and answer to by the end of the meeting. So it is not a topic. See, if I give them a topic, they are the experts. They can share their patient stories. They can share some techniques, some do's and don'ts, right? They can share some of the practical challenges which they are facing. So that topic would go haywire. It cannot become your deliverable. You need to focus this discussion of the panelists in a particular direction. So beforehand only, you have to sit and think about what you want your deliverable to become, in what form. So now we will discuss this with examples. If you want them to if you want to test the market acceptance for your drug, you need to draft three objective questions. Okay, two or three objective questions. You cannot ask them to go and share their stories subjectively. Everything has to be uh, structured within a framework. So, for example, now going back to the analogy of house building, you had your why that your family is growing and you need a bigger house in close proximity to schools. Now you will call your architect. Now you will ask him to work on this, and again you will want him to deliver you a tangible output in the form of a blueprint. Ki, okay, boss, these are the few blueprints which I have come up with, having 4 bedroom and 3 bedroom house plans. So this is a specific measurable task. So in the similar manner, you have to you have to structure your presentation, right? So for example, the first strategic imperative, if it is, we need to design a successful phase 3 trial, pre-launch. So herein what we would want our physicians to give solutions to give answers to it. It won't be a vague question like discuss the phase 2 data, right? The phase 2 data which we are presenting to them. Instead, we should formulate our questions like, produce a ranked list of the top 3 most compelling primary endpoints for the phase 3 trial with a clear rationale for each. So herein comes the objectivity, 3 most compelling primary endpoints. Then identify the top 5 practical barriers, right? Then likewise, yeah, so this is, sorry, I'm so sorry, this is for the next one, wherein we are trying to test the market. So if we need to accelerate market adoption, we can't ask them to discuss feedback on what feedback they are getting from their patients. Rather, we need to structure our question much more objectively, identify the top 5 practical barriers, right, to prescribing our drug in the first month of launch. Likewise, if we need a new publication plan, the third stage wherein our brand is doing quite well in the market and we need a new publication plan. So we want to expect them to brainstorm publication ideas. We will ask them to generate a list of 7 potential, attach a number, give them some objectivity to discuss on. Okay, so generate a list of 7 potential manuscript titles from our data set and prioritize them based on their potential impact on the what do they feel, how they feel that these 7 data points would impact the standard of care in their clinical practice. So herein we want to give their insights. So this was about the what. You knew your why, the strategic imperative of the pharmaceutical company. Based on that strategic imperative, you formulated a list of specific, objective, figure-focused questions which you want that your clinician should be able to answer by the end of the board meeting. Now, how to reach there, right? How to make them answer those questions. This would happen through a series of questions, which we call as discussion questions. Okay. So, for example, in our analogy of house, we knew that we need a bigger house. Our architect told our architect, so for our architect to be able to deliver that blueprint having 3 or 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and so on, he needs to understand our requirements in a better way. So, for example, he should know that he should be able to have a checklist of checklist in front of him in the form of questions wherein he has the answers. So, for example, he should be knowing that how many people will be living in that house. Once he knows that, okay, it is 5 or 6 people based on family size, he will come up with the idea of 3 or 4 BHK house. Then he should be knowing what is more important to me, a larger kitchen or a home office. Likewise, he would like to know about my priority, proximity to my office or proximity to my school. So this set of questions based on which the architect is delivering me a blueprint, this set of questions forms my discussion tool set. Okay, so examples. Now, instead of putting a question like this on my slide in front of the expert panels that did you like our data, no one is saying a no to this question. You should be asking a very specific, what aspect of this data gives you the most confidence to change your practice? What gives you the most pause? Be specific. Try to know as much as possible from your questions. Don't you agree our primary endpoint is a good choice? Very vague question. We are considering endpoint X. In your clinical reality, what are the strengths and weaknesses of using this to measure success, right? Then what do you think? Replace it with considering the 3 patient profiles we have discussed, which one represents the greatest unmet need in your clinic today and why? So all the while be very specific, be very objective. So till now, what we have learned that for having a productive ad board meeting, we need to stick to the framework, and this framework is very simple. As a team, we should be knowing about our companies, our pharma companies, business imperative, then we should be able to, based on this business imperative, we should be able to know that what exactly we want our expert panelists to answer by the end of the meeting. And the third part, in the form of, again, in the form of discussion questions, how are we planning them? How are we planning to reach that deliverable from the end of our experts? So now talking about the expert panel composition. So who all are a part of the expert panel? Certainly there would be an academic theorist having a deep scientific knowledge, often a global key opinion leader. Then there would be the pragmatic clinician, someone from community medicine, because he is seeing the real world patients. Then you will have an up and coming expert who will be able to bring the fresh perspective up. You must have a skeptic also as a part of your red board, because he will be I mean, all the more preferable if he is using a competitor's product. So their validation is incredibly powerful, and then certainly it is advisable to have an allied professional, because a nurse would provide a different and vital viewpoint on the patient journey. And as we discussed, ideally there should be 8 to 12 advisors. Beyond 12, there would be too many side discussions happening, and below 8, you would be not getting real insights. So now we will talk about something called as pre-read deck. See, this is nothing but, in a way, a short presentation, maybe 10 to 15 slider, which is the part of that panel I would be receiving from the pharma company 1 to 2 weeks before the ad board happening. So this will give the speaker an idea about the structure of the meeting. He would be knowing that what he is expected of, what questions he would be directing his thought process around, right? And then you should be having a facilitator who knows to execute your house. In a way, he would be moderating the ad board meeting. He would be keeping a check on someone who speaks too much. And at the same time, he will make shy people speak. So we do need a facilitator for a successful running of an ad board meeting. So now talking about the pre-read deck. See, pre-read deck is also would be following the same framework which we discussed earlier: the why, the what, and the how. So why will have the business question, the business problem, the business imperative. What would be the objective of that particular session, and how would be the discussion questions through which the meeting will lead to the end, wherein we will have answers to those objective questions, right? So the structure would be objective, followed by a brief background, very brief background of the condition of the disease area or the therapy area, followed by discussion questions, is the absolute gold standard approach. Right? It has to be objective focused sections. We need not to give theoretical details. Everyone over there in that room knows about those aspects. We need to give them data which is relevant and which is helpful for them to reach to the objective of the meeting. So in a way, when you are sitting and designing the pre-read deck, think of it like this. Your pre-read presentation should be able to answer what is going on inside the experts mind, right? So first thing he would be thinking like, okay, what is the first major goal of this meeting? So therein would come your objective, followed by, then he will think of, okay, this is the goal of the meeting. To help with that goal, what is the minimum background information if they want me to, if they want me to answer, I mean, if they want me to come up with five top physical, five top barriers which I face while prescribing their drug. Where is the data? Right? So I will need that data. I will need that background information. So in the logical flow of your PPT, the objectives will be followed by the only relevant background data points. Then the third question in his mind would be, okay, so now what are the specific questions you want me to ponder to prepare for this? So now I have the data, now I have the overall objective. Now break that objective into smaller questions and take their answers from me. So this sort of structure, the same thing which is happening in the expert's mind, has you have to translate it into the form of a PPT. So I have taken an example over here. So for example, there was this expert panel discussion on the acceptance of army in the management of heart failure. So the pre-read deck, I started it with the strategic imperative. What is the business problem? They have already launched the molecule in the market. Now they need to know that what are the main barriers, right? What are the main challenges for the lesser acceptance of this molecule in the market. So they know, the pharma knows that global and national guidelines do recognize the superiority of RNA therapy. Still, there is resistance in the Indian outpatient market. So, to ensure the medical and marketing strategies, uh, the pharma wanted to address the actual barriers Indian physicians are facing. Right? So, this was the business imperative. Now, coming to the next slide, spoke on the key objectives. So objectives, again, the deliverables, which I want that my expert panel should be able to give answers to by the end of the meeting. So I put up two questions. First, in the form of objectives. First one was the ideal de novo patient profile, the new patient profile, which would be an ideal candidate for starting ARNI. And the second objective I kept is the definitive barrier in switching. So see, there would be two categories of patient which a cardiologist would be seeing in his OPD. A new patient, cardiac patient, and someone who, this would be the first category. And the second category would be someone on previous medication. Now he is not responding to that management, and now the physician wants to change his line of treatment. So first objective was the de novo patient profile, to construct a detailed profile of the HFrEF patient, including clinical, demographic, and socioeconomic factors for whom an ARNI should be the first line therapy without even thinking of other drugs. ARNI should be the first line therapy. So I wanted my expert panels to give me that profile, to give me the specifications of that profile by the end of the meeting. So this was my first objective based on my business imperative. And second objective was to understand the most significant barrier that is preventing. About this second objective was based on the second profile of the patient, someone who is already on medicines and now they are not responding to the previous treatment, and thus the physician wants them to switch to ARNI. So herein I wanted my physicians to give me objective points in the form of the single most one significant barrier barrier that each one of them was facing, preventing or delaying a switch from ACE inhibitors to an ARNI, right? And also, I wanted them to tell me specific clinical tipping point, a specific drop in SBP, where that barrier outweighs the therapeutic benefit in a physician's decision making. So, see, these objectives which I put up on the slide, they are very specific. They won't allow the physicians to go haywire and talk on other aspects of the pathology of the disease condition. So in my pre-read deck, I gave the company's business imperative, followed by the objectives. I divided these into two: for de novo patient and for someone who needed to be switched to ARNI. And then I will move towards the how. How part is in the discussion questions, in which I can break my objective into smaller discussion questions. So uh, small segments, the meeting segments would be around discussing one particular question. So maybe objective one can be broken down into two discussion questions. So our session one would answer the objective one, and it will be in the form of two or three sub-segments, wherein each sub-segment will deal with one discussion question, right? And these are some rules which you have to put on paper, that this is a non-promotional forum. Everything is confidential, and our discussion may involve future plans and unpublished data, right? And everything is based on your expertise. We will, in our pre-read deck, we will give KOL introductory slides and then meeting agenda. So session one is objective one. So sessions have to be broken down based on the objectives. Two objectives, two sessions. So first session will be talking. We are planning to have solution, to have a specific answer to this question by the end of session one. So, see, I gave the objective. Now I am talking about the relevant background information. What is the relevant background information? I will tell, I will just give the brief data about the existing guidelines to the clinicians. I will talk about the evidence, and then I will come and talk about the real world hurdle, right? So the first thing, current guideline landscape. I will very briefly, I will tell them about international guidelines that even as per the ACC 2022 guidelines, ARNI is recommended as a replacement for an ACE inhibitor in eligible patients with HFrEF to reduce morbidity and mortality. Guidelines suggest ARNIs can be considered as first-line therapy in de novo. So this is the guideline data with proper referencing. Likewise, even Indian guideline perspective from CSIHF 2021, it acknowledges the superiority of ARNIs. It recommends switching from ACE to ARNI and implicitly acknowledges that cost and access are significant considerations in routine practice. So this is the guideline landscape. Very briefly, I told them. Okay. Then I came to paradigm shift the evidence. What was the evidence? So the evidence based on this global and national consensus, which was on the previous slide, I conclude by saying that according to the evidence, ARNIs tip the balance with significant mortality and morbidity benefit. And what is my data which supports this? A quick recap of paradigm HF trial I will give. This was the population size, this was the design, and then results. See, everything needs to be presented in a format which is very easily consumable by the clinician sitting over there, right? So those 8 to 10 people in the meeting room should be able to grasp the data from your slides. Do not make slides textual. Do not make them too informative. Just keep the data relevance to the point to which it is needed, right? So herein we have given the results. primary endpoint, which was considered as CV death or HF hospitalization. Relative risk reduction was 20%. For all-cause mortality, the reduction was by 16%. For CV death, it was by 20%. So the evidence suggested that ARNIs demonstrated a clear mortality and morbidity. So we just set a stage for them to discuss. Now coming to the third part, we talked about guideline landscape. We told them about the paradigm HF trial. Now we are talking about the real world hurdle, that it is a tug of war happening between the evidence, which is towards the ARNI push, with the practice, which is still showing some ACE inhibitor inertia. So that way, these 3 or 4 slides will give them a pretty good idea that what is the scenario, what is the challenge, in spite of the evidence, what is the hurdle the Indian healthcare is facing. So now coming to the now we will end our presentation with this slide. Like, this is the key question we put in front of them, that in your routine, so based on these slides, in your routine OPD practice, for which HFrEF patient profile do you now consider an ARNI as your default first line therapy, bypassing ACE inhibitor altogether? What factors make a patient an ideal de novo candidate? So certainly for this particular question, they will give you their objective answers. They won't be sharing patient stories or their own experiences with you, but they will be giving you the objective answer. So first objective is clear from the first session. Now the session 2 will talk about the switch from ACE inhibitor to ARNI. So this is the objective 2. Again, you will give them relevant background information in just 2 or 3 slides, based on the guideline landscape, based on the hurdles, based on the research papers. Just do some research from all those research papers, prepare a review write-up, and convert it to a pictorial slide. And then that much, just 2 or 3 slides background information should be good enough. And then again, we will put a key question in front of them, which will demand very objective answers. When considering switching a patient from a stable dose of ACE inhibitor to an ARNI, what is your single biggest barrier? And at what point does this barrier cause you to stop the switch and continue the ACE inhibitor, which will give you the barrier, right? Despite the evidence from paradigm HF trial. So we talked about the framework, we talked about the composition of the ad board, we talked about the structure of and the primary crucial elements of a pre-read deck. And with all of this, our meeting happened. Once the meeting happened, during the meeting, everything needs to be noted down by someone from your team. And basis these inputs, basis these minutes, you have to draft the report. Please, too loud colors. GPT drew this image, so don't go with the colors. So basically, the report will be the culmination of the entire framework. It will it will start from the discussion questions, then narrowing towards the key findings, and finally answering the strategic imperative. Then you will draft an executive summary. So executive summary will be a concise document having these 3 answers, having the answers to your why, what, and how. Again, why are we here? Just to summarize, why are we here? It will be having this strategic imperative. What do we need? The ad board objectives. How do we get it? Discussion questions, right? And yes, if an ad board is conducted thoughtfully, and if you get the answers to your why then certainly it will, it will be a dream come true. A executed advisory board can directly influence the global publication communication plans. It will certainly help you out in phase 2 and 4 clinical development strategy. Medical affairs and MSL training materials would be better, and health economics and outcomes research evidence generation it would help you in. And certainly, it is de-risking your strategy and ensures that your science, which happened within the premises of the company, meets the real world needs of the physicians and the patients. So thank you. Keep tuned for the next modules. Thanks. Bye bye. Take care. Why the pharma company has asked for an ad board meeting.